Hello and welcome to another Goulet Q&A. This is episode 23. It's really been a lot of them, hasn't it? And I keep them coming, so I'm glad that you're here joining me for another one today. This one's gonna be a little bit shorter because I have to go to the dentist and get a filling in 25 minutes. So I will try to keep it short. Got some questions. This week is Monteverde, and the reason that I wanted to make it Monteverde is because they've had a lot of stuff coming out recently. Just in the last couple of months, they've had the poquito, they've had several different colors of the Monteverde tool pen, which is kind of neat. They've had the Regatta Sport, the Impressa, and we got some news surrounding the Nighthawk. So definitely lots of stuff going on with Monteverde. So that's why I decided to make it Monteverde week this week. So I got a bunch of questions, and I'm just going to start plowing through them because I'm short on time. So at Rocks in Space on Twitter said, as a proud owner of the new Impressa, I'm wondering if the nib or nib unit swap is the same in the Swapping Out Monteverde Nibs video. Yes, it is. It's the same number 6 nib that's used in the Invincia Color Fusion, in the, let's see here, the Regatta Sport that just came out, in the, what else do they have? And pretty much all the Monteverde pens except for the Poquito, the tool pen, and the Artista Crystal. Those ones have smaller nibs, but all of the other Monteverde pens share nibs. Now some of the older, like Invincias and stuff like that, don't swap the nibs out. But everything that I've had in the last year and a half, 2 years, that's all been the new stuff that swap out nibs. So check out that video from September 21st of 2012. That shows you how to swap out those nibs. Next question, Anastasia R on Facebook said, are there any converters that work with the Monteverde touch screen Stylus fountain tool pen, shortly known as the Monteverde tool pen? Love the black one. That one just came out. I use fountain pens in part because of the lack of waste, and cartridges are waste. Yes, I agree. I'm not a huge fan of cartridges, and that is definitely one compromise with this tool pen. I'm intending to do a full review of that. Short on it this week. I would like to get it out. The yellow one came out around Christmas time. The black and the silver ones just came out. Literally got it 2 days ago. So still working on putting together a video for those. However, related to that, it takes a standard international short cartridge. Now, because of all the toolness packed into that pen, you get a little screwdriver in there and a level and stuff like that, you can't fit a full-size converter. That's kind of a bummer. The Coeco converter is standard international as well. It's a little squeeze converter and it's shorter. However, that one is too fat to fit inside the pen as well. The only converter that will fit in that pen is the Monteverde Mini converter. However, it's a little plunger type converter. It won't fit the full length of the plunger. You got to squeeze it down about 1/3 of the way to be able to fit it in there. So if you go and fill that converter the whole way and then go to assemble the pen, it's going to push a little bit of ink out. So even that is not an ideal solution. Could work. So that would be the only converter you could use. The best thing to do is to fill it using an ink syringe to refill your standard international short cartridges. Not an ideal situation, but it definitely works. Check out my Fountain Pen 101 refilling an ink cartridge video, more on how to do that. Next question, Asif C on Facebook. Say I wanted to get a black Monteverde nib in 0.7mm cursive italic. How would I go about doing that? Would I be able to do it through the Goulet Pen Company? No, you would not. Unfortunately, companies don't seem to want to make fountain pen nibs that are italic or stub. Cursive italic is very similar to a stub for all intents and purposes. They don't generally make them less than like a 1.1mm size. One exception I can think is Stipula just came out with the Stipula Speed, which has a 0.9mm stub. There are some random companies here and there that will have nibs there, but Monteverde doesn't make anything. I'm not aware of anybody else that fits that pen. So your only other option would be to get a custom ground that I can think, and that's pretty expensive, but it's an option to go with. I really wish that they did get a lot of requests for finer stub nibs than 1.1, but unfortunately they just don't have them. Once you get to that level of stub though, honestly, a 0.7mm, that's, you know, kind of your typical like medium to broad nib. And when you try to make a nib like that, a stub, there's just not that much variation between the cross-stroke and the downstroke. So you really have to kind of look for it to be able to even tell the difference. So I think that's why most companies just don't even bother doing it, is because to the average person, you wouldn't even really be able to tell the difference. So that's why. At Katie Zumbrum on Twitter, I cannot find very much online about Monteverde Lamy cartridges. Are they good, or should I stick to Lamy cartridges? Okay, that's a good question. I think you're one of the first ones to ever ask me about those, actually. Monteverde, they have a slew of different cartridges. They also have a bunch of ballpoint refills and stuff that fit all kinds of pens, but they have been making cartridges that'll fit into other proprietary brands' pens. Lamy is one of them. So it's basically Monteverde ink in Lamy cartridges. Honestly, I've never tried them. I've never heard anyone that's tried them or gotten any feedback about them. It's something that if I was more into cartridges, I would probably get a few myself and try them out. I just don't have that kind of time to test out products that I don't have anything to do with. I'd love to get some feedback though. If there is interest in those, I mean, obviously we sell a lot of Lamy products on gouletpens.com, and we have cartridges for the Lamy pens because that is one of the pens that I think more people starting in the fountain pen hobby tend to start out with. I'm not sure how obvious it would be that the Monteverde Lamy cartridges would fit those pens and stuff like that. So it's, you know, for me, it's like, okay, do I really want to go down that road? So if there's a demand for those, I will certainly explore that a little bit more. But I'd love to get some feedback on it from you, general public. But, you know, Katie, that's a great question. And I don't have an answer for you, sorry. Kimberly S. on Facebook, how does the poquito stack up to other pens in a similar price point? I'd love to see a side-by-side. Okay, well, I don't have a side, I have a side-by-side of a couple of pens. So here's the poquito. It's this tiny, tiny, tiny little pen. And I do plan on doing a video on it. My goodness, I've been planning for a long time. I have a lot of pens I've been planning on doing a video on. You guys will just have to forgive me. I got a lot going on. I'm doing the best I can. But anyway, this is the poquito, and it really is tiny. I mean, I have giant hands, but the poquito itself is very tiny. Next to a Lamy All-Star, you can see how tiny this thing really is, not only in length, but in the diameter as well. I mean, the grip on this thing is tiny. The overall pen size is just very, very tiny. So it's a great little purse pen or a little pocket pen. However, it's only available in a medium nib. So it writes well. It's the same nib that's on the Artistic Crystal and on the Monteverde Tool Pen, but medium only. So that's kind of the drawback. However, it does fit a Coeco cartridge converter. That's what I've got on here right now. So it does fit that. So that is kind of a big plus for this pen. So I'm not in love with the Coeco converter. In fact, it's usually just better to use it as a, you know, with an ink syringe as kind of a refillable cartridge, because the converter itself does not squeeze that great and everything, but it does give you the ability to kind of reuse it over and over again, unlike a cartridge which will eventually kind of break and die out. So yeah, I've got it here, and to give you some perspective, almost comedically here, this is the Jinhao 159, which is a gigantic pen. And to show you how small this thing is next to the 159, it's really almost laughable. In fact, you can actually take the cap off the 159 here and take the poquito cap and lose it completely inside that cap. That's how big of a difference there is there. Anyway, so I'll plan on doing more on the poquito later, but all around though, if you're looking for a really, really compact pen like this, it is a great pen in that price range. It's in like the, gosh, I should have looked up the price. I don't even remember. Look it up yourself. Gouletpens.com. Sorry, I didn't have time to look it up. It's been a busy week. Anyway, let's see here. Patricia D on Facebook. My Invincia with a black nib seems to write much drier than my Primo with a chrome nib. They both have medium nibs. Is that typical? It's not unheard of. It's not super typical. It's not like every black nib is going to write drier than every chrome nib. I have noticed that some of the nibs tend to have the tines a little bit tight. Now, it's not the end of the world when you're in that situation. You can actually just take and kind of push and flex on the tines a little bit. In fact, if you look at my Regatta my Regatta Sport video that I just put out this week, you can check that one out. I actually do flex out the tines a little bit too, because I had the same kind of thing. I had a black nib on it and it was writing a little dry. I just kind of pressed it and kind of flexed out the nib. You got to be careful not to overdo it and spring the nib, but if you just flex it a little bit, it'll open them up and allow it to write just like your other chrome one would. So I don't know if that's a black nib, chrome nib thing, or if it's just every now and then a nib comes out like that, but it's pretty relatively easy fix if you're careful. Benjamin B on Facebook, why is the Nighthawk being scrapped? That's a great question. And it's one that I'm deeply saddened by, because it was actually a little bit of a shock to me, because I didn't find out until I went to reorder that they had decided to discontinue them. It was basically a decision from the manufacturer. Now, I collaborated in the design of this pen. This would have been about a year ago. And so it was something I had something to do with in helping to design it. However, I'm not I didn't have direct contact with the manufacturer. I worked with the folks at Jaffa, who they're the distributor, and they work with the manufacturer for Monteverde. And so I helped to kind of collaborate the design and the ideas. I didn't have anything to do with the actual manufacturing of the pens. That is stuff that, you know, goes more technically and beyond where I am comfortable. So they basically were trying to do something they hadn't done before, which was to put a matte finish on their carbon fiber pens. They were able to do it. The first batch came out great. Then they started to have some issues with some bubbles appearing in the finish. And basically it's because of the matte finish that they were doing that these bubbles that were in the carbon fiber weave that were getting trapped when they put the finish on were showing up really bad when they were, you know, put that matte finish on there. And so, you know, we saw some of it, some were rejected, and they basically, they tried to change the carbon fiber weave. If you notice, like the first batch of the Nighthawks were a little bit fatter weave, then the next batch that came was a little tighter weave, so they tried to change the weave and change the design a little bit to try to eliminate this issue. Didn't work. They ended up having to reject so many of these because of the finish that they didn't feel comfortable putting out into, you know, your customers' hands. Then basically they just determined that they kind of admitted defeat and that they were not able to manufacture it as originally intended. So that is kind of a bummer, but that's why it's happening. And I believe we're actually going to be getting a batch of this initial kind of ones with the bubbly finish on it, because they're basically discontinuing it, and they have a bunch of these pens laying around that are perfectly good pens. They just have some of these small bubbles that they didn't want to sell as new. So we actually may be seeing one last kind of batch of, you know, a select number of pens that have kind of these imperfections in them that will kind of blow out and just let you have it at a steep discount. But that is why it happened, and I'm deeply saddened by it, because it would have been the perfect pen, honestly, if they were able to kind of make it work, but just it wasn't meant to be. And then related to that, Stephen B on Facebook said, since the Nighthawk is being retired, what was the total number produced? And can we now say it was an unnumbered limited edition? Well, one thing I want to be clear on is that the circumstances around this Nighthawk are not the spirit of a limited edition or a special edition or anything like that. This pen was intended to be an ongoing pen, and had they been able to work out the manufacturing side of things, it would have been an extremely popular pen for years and years. Just realized I never flipped that. And it would have been, because it was one of our most popular pens. So that said, I don't actually know the official number of all of them that were produced. I'm going to say it's somewhere around 300. That's my guess. I don't want to say it was an unnumbered limited edition. Honestly, I'm still kind of picking up the pieces from the whole situation. It's relatively recently I found out they were discontinuing it. We still have some of the pens. We're still getting kind of this one last kind of faulty batch of them. And it's, I still haven't like absorbed 100% this whole situation. So I'm not going to try to spin it and say it's like, oh, it's this great thing that happened. It's a little bit of a defeat, and it's, you know, we tried something that had never been done before, and it kind of worked at the beginning and it kind of fell apart at the end. So it's something that you just take the risk, you know. But I will say, I'm not going to try and like over glorify what happened with the Nighthawks to say, oh, you've got this, you know, really special pen and unnumbered limited edition kind of thing. You know, I'm just going to be honest and say that, you know, we thought this pen would be great and would continue on forever. It ended up not doing that. So it is essentially a limited pen because it's not being made anymore. However, that said, understand that it has not been our intention at all to make this thing limited. It was kind of a decision from the manufacturing that it was made to be that way. So you have a little piece of history if you have one of these Nighthawks. I'm not going to say that it's going to be worth any kind of value increase or anything in the future. I honestly don't know, but you know, we tried to do something pretty cool, and you know, if there ever comes a way that they're able to change it in the future and we could possibly bring it back, I would certainly be open to that. But as of right now, it seems that the dream is dead. So it's a little sad, I know. All right, moving on with life. Scott B on Facebook, when I started using fountain pens about a year ago, my preferred pen was a piston fill pen. Do you know if Monteverde will ever make a piston fill pen? Also, why doesn't Monteverde make a 1.5 stub nib? Great questions. Okay, so yeah, I hear you about the piston fill thing. I can go either way, honestly. I've got some piston fill pens that I love. Sometimes they're a pain to clean out. If you're changing inks a lot, a piston pen is really kind of annoying to have to clean out all the time. I actually kind of prefer some of the cartridge converter pens for the ones where I like to change the ink colors all the time. So it's really a matter of preference, but I will say that from a manufacturing standpoint, making a pen with a converter is much less expensive than making one with a piston. And especially because a piston, essentially you have to design the whole piston around the size of the pen and stuff like that. So it's really a lot of engineering and R&D costs that go along with it. So it gives you a little bit less flexibility as far as creating new pens and changing things and wanting to discontinue them if it's not working. So I think Monteverde, because they have a lot of pens that are kind of unconventional in design and unconventional in color and materials and stuff, they really kind of push the envelope in terms of the materials used, like the carbon fiber and stuff like that, and they do, you know, rose gold finishes and just kind of neat finishes and stuff like that. I think they probably just want to lower their own risk in terms of development costs and stuff. This is all just speculation. I don't really have like insider knowledge to all the development of every Monteverde pen, but I do know from a manufacturing side that making a pen with a converter is much less expensive than making one with a piston. Plus, from a user side, a converter is kind of nice. It's a little less ink capacity, but if the converter is very user serviceable, it's a standard international converter, and they're $5 to replace if it happens to go faulty or something like that down the road. You can replace it. Plus, you can use it for cartridges too. I think that because Monteverde has a lot of pens in the lower price range, they want to attract a lot of new fountain pen users to it, and cartridges are a great way to kind of get people into them who are intimidated by bottled ink. So that's why. And then about the 1.5 stub nib, I don't really know. I think it's probably just a demand thing. It's probably just they drew a line somewhere and said there probably just aren't enough people that want 1.5 stubs to have to put that on every pen that goes out the door, you know. Maybe they'll make them again in the future someday, I don't know, but they don't right now. So there you go. John H. on Facebook, what do you think of the Mega Ink Ball, the roller ball that fills from a bottle? I've got one and I love it. It comes with a few replacement nibs. I haven't found the need to replace the original nib yet, and I've had it for several years. Okay, well, I actually have one. I bought one a while ago, and it's not a widely known about pen or discussed pen, but it is a refillable rollerball pen. So it's a rollerball pen that has a converter on it, and you can refill it with fountain pen ink and use it just like you would a regular rollerball pen. So you get a lot of the advantages of a fountain pen ink with a rollerball tip. So it's not going to have you know, some of the disadvantages a fountain pen might have, like nib creep and, you know, getting ink on your fingers and stuff like that as much. It is kind of an interesting pen. It only comes in black, and I haven't gotten asked a lot about it. It's not super cheap, you know. I want to say it's like in the $80, $90 range, somewhere around there. I'm not 100% sure, but it's an interesting pen. I haven't gotten asked a lot about it. As far as the tips go, you know, if you don't have to replace the tip, great. You know, I think the tip that you get is actually the whole front section of the pen, and it's, you know, $10 or something like that. So it's not super cheap, but if it's lasted this long, great. That speaks well to the pen holding up over time. If you're interested in them, you know, what the heck, leave me a comment on this video, and maybe I'll consider carrying them. I just haven't had a lot of people ask me about them. Okay, a couple more questions. I have a Napa. Oh, sorry. At MP4167 on Twitter. I have a Napa, very smooth. How do I order parts? Okay, well, the Monteverde Napa is a discontinued pen? I believe it is a discontinued pen. I know we stopped carrying it here a while ago. I think the pen has been discontinued. Crap, I just realized I didn't actually confirm that. But I know that that pen is not super popular, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's not going to be available much longer, if it is not already. Dang, I really should have looked that up. Sorry. I think the pen is discontinued. I'm not 100% sure. Don't take what I'm saying as gospel here. I believe the pen is discontinued though. So they've never distributed parts through any of their retailers though. So you can't get it through me or any other Monteverde dealer. I would contact Jaffa. Jaffa is the distributor for Monteverde. Go to jaffa.com. Inquire with them about getting parts. If it's a warranty thing, you know, there's a form to submit and all that stuff. If it's just getting additional parts, that may be a little more complicated, maybe not, but just contact them and they will be able to help you out. And the last question, Shawn Biddle on YouTube said, the Artista Crystal is one of the rare pens that has a clear feed. It's such a cool feature, so why the reason for the rarity? Maybe it's too much of a casual look for other brands to use. Any lesser known pens with a clear feed besides Monteverde, Artista, and the Platinum Cool? Well, the Platinum Cool is the other one I was going to say, but you beat me to the punch there, Shawn. Yeah, I don't know why. There's not a lot of pens that use clear feeds. There have been some over the years. The only ones that I can think of, honestly, off the top of my head right now, are the Artista Crystal and the Platinum Cool. It's really kind of neat having that clear feed because whatever ink you're using, it just makes the feed look really neat. However, there are some inks that, especially I guess whatever type of plastic that's used for those feeds, tend to grab the ink a little bit. It's made to be that way. I think the plastic that's used is such that it increases the capillary action and makes the ink flow through, but that also kind of makes it kind of grab on. So it can be hard to clean it out, especially with some inks, to get it perfectly clear. So that's probably part of the reason why manufacturers don't use it. I don't know if the type of plastic that's used is more expensive or in some way not ideal in the manufacturing process maybe, or I don't really know 100% why more people don't have clear feeds. I think it's kind of a neat differentiator for some of these pens, but I know also from hearing people that use them regularly that it can be equally a frustrating as well as cool aspect to the pen, but it's probably more just a preference thing than anything else. So there you go. That's all I got for this week. I know it's a little bit shorter Q&A, but that's okay. I've been doing some long ones recently, and you're probably just as well off not to have to listen to me babble on forever. Look at that, only 2 flips here on this video. Okay, so next week I'm actually taking off. I'm going on a family vacation, and that'll be fun. So I won't be doing a Q&A next week. I will be coming back, though, on March 11th of 2014. It's Friday. And that one's going to be an open forum, so I'm going to be taking kind of whatever questions that you have. And we'll go from there. So thank you so much for watching this time. If you got any questions for not next week, but the following week, you can leave a comment on YouTube or on Ink Nouveau. You can email gouletqa@gouletpens.com, hashtag gouletqa on Twitter, or leave a post on Facebook once we ask the question about a week and a half from now. So thanks so much. I really appreciate you watching today and for spending time with me once again. And have a great couple of weeks before I see you again, and write on.